And so with the arguments that I had with my chief pilots, they say, well, we recognize that you have this medical knowledge and you're right, but the corporation has mandated that we wear the mask as a visual thing.
This is Front and Center with your host, Jacquie Jordan.
Entertainment and pop culture expert Jacquie Jordan is with us.
Two-time Emmy-nominated Hollywood producer Jacquie Jordan.
We are the show where we talk with the change agents, the storytellers, and the activators, making impact from behind the scenes. Welcome back. I'm Jacquie Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. And you can subscribe to us here on Rumble, YouTube, or any place that you listen to your favorite podcast. We are Front and Center, the show where the change agents, the storytellers, and the activators from behind the scenes are making an impact, and they join us now, front and center. And today, joining us, I've got two fabulous doctors, both established in their own right, Dr. Kevin Stillwagon and Dr. Philip Buckler. And I've had an amazing opportunity to meet them and know them both and watch them. But I just want to step back for a second because the topic we're going to talk about today is unmasking the masks. And we'll just say just real quickly, like, whoa, where did the masks go? Where did the conversation go? But I think we got beat up over those masks over the past couple of years. And I want to just throw in that, when the pandemic happened, everybody went different directions. It was such a universal bifurcation. There was an absolute scattering across all sorts of belief systems. Families split up. Schools got into fights. We watched cities destroy themselves over that time period. And it's kind of like ghost, nobody remembers it even happened. But bigger than that for me was the witnessing, and from my perspective, of people going all in with the resources that they had to make a difference and to sort out the truth and find their way out of it. And so Dr. Philip Buckler is an Army practicing dentist, and he is the author of this massive book, The Book on Masks, your comprehensive guide to the manipulative, psychological, malformed philosophy and misrepresented science that supercharged a global hysteria. Look how thick that book is. That is a lot of data and well-defined research. I am amazed by it. This is what he was doing while we were all masked up. And then equally amazing, Dr. Kevin Stillwagon, who's a doctor of chiropractic doctor. And I think you're a legacy. I think your family was chiropractors, and also a longtime Delta Airlines pilot. And now he's the vice president for freedomflyers.org. And he's got such an important role in this liberation around the masking and what keeps us safe in our immunity, especially as we fly. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you here. It's such a privilege to have both of you here. Real quickly, what happened to the whole conversation of masks? Did everybody just forget that happened? I mean, I was getting chased we're getting chased out of airlines, banks, grocery stores. Well, Dr. Buckler, to give us a little bit of background about the fight. What were you doing during what happened to you as a result of the mask as an Army dentist?
Well, I complied with the requirements up until February of 2022, at which point I finally said no. So I got the classic, all right, this is a lawful order, therefore you're going to get a general order of memorandum of reprimand, referred officer evaluation report, which sound very mild as far as disciplinary measures go, but really they're pieces of paper that automatically initiate elimination proceedings, essentially. And if you survive the elimination, then they scupper your career if they stay on there. And so went through that, got those, went to an elimination board. Thankfully, the elimination board voted to retain. That was quite the experience. And then as of just the week before last, as a matter of fact, less than 2 weeks ago, I just got a letter saying that the referred officer evaluation report had been removed from my record. So that's a step in the right direction, hopefully.
So it's kind of like the whole entire mask skirmish for you went away. But as a dentist, you already knew that medically masks were ineffective.
Yeah, at least, I mean, obviously they keep visible stuff off of your face, but that's why we wear them. But as far as anything like a virus or infection control, I think most doctors, I think, just kind of wear them because that's what they were taught in medical school or dental school. But they don't do anything as far as actual infection control goes. This debate's gone back, even as far as the Spanish flu in the late 1800s when masks first started to be used. But they don't work as far as any sort of infection control goes. They just stop visible debris essentially.
And as for me, I just felt like so gross wearing it. I was like so dirty,
Yes.
like breathing into it and breathing that little plastic glove thing. Ew, it's just so gross to me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the research is just amazing. I just want to say, if anybody has any concern about whether a mask is effective here, it is documented in the Book of Masks. Dr. Stillwagon, for you, tell me what happened with you when you refused to wear a mask.
Yeah, so I never did comply ever. I never put the mask on, not even one time. And I was just
Good for you.
amazed at how pilots complied with this ridiculous mandate. I mean, I was proud to wear that uniform, absolutely proud to wear it. And it took a lot of work to get there, to be a major airline captain, especially for Delta Airlines, one of the world's premier airlines. And now they're telling me that I have to wear a face mask as part of my uniform. That was an absolute disgrace to me. Number one, because I knew that it could not stop the spread of any upper respiratory infection. And I also knew that they had never done any testing on masks for pilots to see how it would affect their reaction time. They'd never done tests on evacuating an aircraft with masked flight attendants and masked passengers to see how that would affect anything. They never did any testing to see how it would affect the thinking process of passengers and flight attendants and all crew members at altitude. I mean, here you are, you're in an aircraft at 8,000 feet cabin altitude. That's the average altitude of an aircraft when you're flying coast to coast. You're at 39,000 feet. The cabin altitude is 8,000 feet. Now, on
That's
top
like being
of
an
that,
aspen. That's like being an aspen for,
exactly.
Yeah,
And
like
you're putting a breathing restricting device on top of that. Come on now, this is crazy. So I had these arguments with my chief pilots, and they said, well, you absolutely have to wear it as. What's that?
30 years, correct? Flying.
33 years in flying. And also with the background that I have, in chiropractic and some medical training, I knew that the masks could not stop any respiratory infections. And so with the arguments that I had with my chief pilots, they say, well, we recognize that you have this medical knowledge and you're right, but the corporation has mandated that we wear the mask as a visual thing. They want passengers to see all pilots, all flight attendants wearing the same mask, that we're in unity fighting this so-called virus. And so I absolutely would not comply. And so that was in June of 2020. And, a month before that, Donald Trump had cranked up Operation Warp Speed from the Rose Garden. And when I heard him say that, I absolutely was sick to my stomach, because I knew that the mask mandate was already in place. And I knew coming right behind that was going to be a vaccine mandate. And so, I just quit right there in June of 2020. I was on the phone with the chief pilots on a layover. And I said, take me off all of my trips. I'm done. I will not fly like that. And they said, you would really throw your career away from that? You're getting ready to upgrade to the wide body aircraft, the pinnacle of your career, and you're going to throw that away. I said, absolutely. Absolutely, I will. That's how strongly I feel about this. And so I was on unpaid leave for a few months, and then I took an early retirement program. So that's kind of what happened to my career over a mask.
And first off,
bless you for
I
that.
think it's
That's right.
very heroic of both of you gentlemen to stand, in a principled action. If everybody had done that, I
Well,
wouldn't, we wouldn't
you
have
know,
gone, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself till there's a worldwide Walking Dead pandemic happening.
I got to tell you, Jackie, I'm not the only one
No, just
that did that at my airline. I know of one pilot that was in the medical field, and he actually walked into the chief pilot's office wearing a complete full hazmat suit with a full respirator on. And he said, "You want to stop a virus? This is how you do it." And what you're forcing pilots and flight attendants and passengers to wear is just stupid. And it's actually going to make the problem worse. And it does make it worse. And I'm sure Dr. Buckler can attest to this. I mean, the mask will, in fact, trap droplets. That's what it's designed to do. But that's the problem. When you trap droplets in a diaper strapped to your face all day, what are you doing? You're giving your upper respiratory tract the rebreathing of that stuff all day long. And you're actually making yourself about 13 times more likely to develop an upper respiratory infection of any kind. And there have been tests done to show that. So,
I mean, to me, just as a civilian, the irony of fighting a worldwide upper respiratory virus and then covering your own mouth and nose with a mask was so, I was like, what idiot is running the show here? Because like you wouldn't mask yourself if breathing was what was
right.
going to be compromised. And I know I had shared with you my story. I had gone to the bank and they wouldn't take my check because I wasn't masked. And I said, just be a minute. I said, I was in a city, a state, and a county that didn't require it. And they said, well, we do. I said, great. I'll close out my account and you can give me my money back. And they're like, we can't do that. And I was like, they're like, and so we had a standoff. They called the sheriff. They sent 6 sheriff cars to come and talk to me. The sheriff came inside the bank and said, ma'am, can you step outside? I said, are you going to arrest me? They said, no, but can you step outside? I said, I'm here to do business. I either want to cash my check or get my money out. And so finally the bank took my deposit and then the sheriff asked if I would step outside again. I said, I'm confused. Are you going to arrest me? I said, and they said, no. I said, well, this is taken way longer than I had expected and I need to get on with my day. And I walked right out, so that was the kind of stuff I was, experiencing. And I think there's many, many of us who had that story and, all the mask bullies seem to have gone away at this point, or at least changed their hair color. So, but Dr. Buckler, with the research that you put together with the book, what are some of your findings?
Oh yeah, well, you hit on a lot of them. The non-trivial side effects, as far as like actually picking up bacteria growing on masks. There was a study showing that COVID lasts longer on the surface of surgical masks than on most other types of materials, plastic, paper, you name it. Of course, that study was ignored. Just going into COVID, we had more than 20 randomized controlled trials showing that masks don't work, and that includes post-surgical bacterial infections. And if a mask's not going to stop a bacillus of more than 10 times the size of a virus, it's not going to stop a virus either. So I cover all that, listing the studies specifically and quoting from them directly for anyone that's willing to go through that. But I liked what Dr. Stillwagon was talking about with the acknowledgement by his airline that it was a form of symbolic speech, coerced symbolic speech in violation of the First Amendment. There's a First Amendment right to not associate with speech with which you disagree. There's a First Amendment right to receive the speech of those who disagreed with compulsory masking, and facial expressions that are overwritten by masks are themselves a form of pure speech that predates even normal speech. I mean, you look at a baby, they communicate through facial expressions when they can only do extremely basic vocalizations. And despite the willful ignorance, willful blindness, or judicial cowardice of judges who ruled otherwise, that is the truth. Compulsory masking was arguably the most widespread violation of the First Amendment possibly in American history.
Just the symbol of making us shut our mouths was terrible.
Yeah.
And we already
extremely potent.
The psychological damage it did to the toddlers in that really precious age between 2 and 3 who are working on their vocal skills and still need facial expressions to learn how to pick up their speech at speech and speech cues. But not to mention just the whole psychological damage of children doing it. I mean, I see a lot of children right now who went through that, with massive OCD issues, not wanting to touch anything, wanting to put Purell or some antibacterial goop on their hands all the time, like not wanting to, like the paranoia that came out of the psychological paranoia that came out of that to the young children just breaks my heart.
Yeah, that's kind of headed our society for a disaster. I mean, if we have literally raised a generation of germaphobes, we're headed for trouble, because what you saw with COVID-19, that scare, that false scare, it could happen again. They will try to scare people again. And if they're convinced that a mask is somehow going to protect them from becoming infected, they're going to fall for the same trap they did the last time. And if they're convinced that injecting something into their body to create something that is supposedly going to protect them, it doesn't. But if they're going to believe that, and it's easy for a person to believe that, they want to believe that, and that's the narrative, and they'll fall for it again. So yeah, I'm concerned that we may have raised a generation of germaphobes, and we got to get away from that. And that's my job as an educator. What I try to do, Jackie, is I try to teach people how the immune system actually works, where the protection of infection really is, and how you build that up and make it strong so that you don't have to fear all of these pathogens that are flying around in the atmosphere all of the time. And they are. And we are constantly exposed to that stuff. We breathe about 100 million various viruses every single day. And that's whether you wear a mask or not, because the mask will not stop those things from getting through and around it. It just won't. And so we're constantly exposed. So people need to understand that, and they need to understand that they have natural built-in defense mechanisms to protect them from becoming infected.
Right. I couldn't believe people fell for it. Like I said, we went from Epstein didn't kill himself 1 month later to we're going to shut the world down, like the TV show The Walking Dead, because the CDC and the zombies are coming. Like that's how people responded to it. And there was like, and then it also made me understand that people had no understanding of their own body's immunity system. They didn't really understand how germs were actually transferred. I remember I was in France. I was actually in Europe when we went through the Italy lockdown. I was at the Louvre when they were planning the lockdown a week later. All the heads were there talking about what was going to happen. And then I flew back to LAX and the CDC was like coming through customs, and they were setting up the big pop-ups, all these big pop-up roll-ups and things. Meanwhile, everybody going by had to put their hand on the ID printer for re-entering this, and nobody's wiping it down. Like I would have wiped it down anyway before I touched it. I just do that. I would do that anyway. Like, so I just got my little wiper out and just wipe it clean. But all of that touching was going on. And I was like, this is all a performance for show. Like this is a pre-planned performance for show. And then also having lived in Los Angeles, which isn't a high geographic influenza area because we don't have winters like the northern states do. And they shut down the beaches and the parks and anything that was public. And then told us to stay inside with our masks on. I was like, you're telling us to do the exact opposite of what is required to keep people who are healthy. And then you're going to lock up people like myself and our age group who are contributing to society and keeping society structures functioning and moving along. You're going to lock us up and compromise our health by locking us inside our own homes. I thought I had lost my mind. I was like, people are falling for this. I couldn't even believe that people fell for this.
They did the same thing in Florida, Jackie. They closed the beaches, and there's still images floating around on the internet of the police chasing somebody down the beach because they were on the. Come on!
I watched Dr. Slogan. I watched the resources that the city of Los Angeles and county spent to keep the city, the beaches patrolled. They were sending out bike police and horse police and helicopter police and the coast. I was like, what? This is crazy. Sunlight and fresh air. Are you kidding me?
And then people even outside were standing on spots 6 feet away from each other. Come on now.
And when we open,
So you're gonna stand on that spot, and then you're gonna breathe the same air and touch the same stuff 6 feet later.
like the restaurants, you have to put a mask in to walk from the hostess table to your table, but you can take the mask off when you get to the table. I was like, okay, we're all in the same fishbowl, breathing the same air, but okay.
And we're laughing about this now
No, it's
because
awful.
looking back in hindsight, and even comedians are joking about it now, and everybody in the audience is rolling over with laughter because we are so stupid to fall for that. But again, I say, and I believe Dr. Buckler will back me up on this, it's a psychological thing. If people actually believe that there's some protection in that mask, it's going to happen again.
I don't know if either of you saw some of the researcher stories, but also I understood that there was a lot of AI tracking happening. So you could be tracked on AI cameras, public cameras, and those who were wearing the mask compliant, those not wearing the mask compliant, you have your cell phone on, your geotagged, you know who you are. So there was an AI tracking mechanism to the whole mask wearing as well that is like very pro transhumanism. That also was part of that assembly of nonsense. Dr. Buckler.
Oh yeah, and as far as just kind of piggybacking off of what Dr. Stillwagon was saying, as far as how persuasive this was in terms of getting people to do it again, I mean that's entirely predictable. Just looking at classic behavioral studies like Solomon Asch in terms of complying with just gentle passive social pressure or not so gentle passive social pressure. But I mean, we have a randomized controlled trial. The Danish face mask study showed in its supplemental data that just wearing a mask for 2 months increased the hard absolute percent of people who thought that they should wear a mask by 16 to 18%, which is more than the margin of victory in most American presidential elections. And that was just after 2 months, and that was in the absence of a mandate. I mean, we did this for 2 years with mandates. I shudder to think of how many people are kind of permanently set in the idea that therefore compulsory masking is now both effective and justifiable, because it's neither of those things.
And then the fiber, the inhaling of the fiber from the mask into your nose that don't even come out of your body, the little tiny microplastics. And how about the disposable, what it did into the environment? I mean, I still see masks, in places and spaces that, I don't want to see masks in. So yeah, just even what the mask and the plastics did to you.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I cited in one of the side effect studies about how one of the reasons that masks don't work is that they can often increase, inflammation and secretions from people who are wearing them. Not everyone, but there's a certain subset of people where the masks are just irritating to their noses, and that's the little the microfibers just get in there, and it takes a few days after they stop wearing the mask. But thankfully, there is the body does have a mechanism to help clear those out, at least once they're still in the nose. But yeah, that masks increase nasal secretions, and that alone could counteract any potential theoretical filtration benefit. And again, I say potential theoretical because that's what the CDC based all their recommendations on. Just a handful of laboratory studies with no comparison to real life.
And listen, if someone wants to wear a mask, I don't care. Live and let live. I don't care if you wear a mask. Just that, but the bullying and the loss of rights and freedom that was threatened for not wearing a mask. And, I would go into some of these stores, and I watched small businesses and people get bullied into compliance, but I'd walk into a store, they'd be like, you have to have your mask on, or they'd give you that little, pull it up over your nose signal. Meanwhile, everybody just walked in and touched the doorknob, and they weren't wiping down the doorknob in between everybody touching, everything else was so dirty. And I was like, oh, this is just insane.
Oh yeah, I remember a Walmart manager got a policeman to kick me out of Walmart for not wearing a mask at one point.
Yeah. And where's that conversation now? So what, Dr. Stillwagner, what are you doing with the Freedom Flyers? What's the mission there?
So U.S. Freedom Flyers, which I am the vice president of now, and it's a 501c3 organization. So people can go to usfreedomflyers.org and donate if they can. And we have a mission, and that mission is to keep mandates out of the cockpit and also out of the airplane and away from passengers as well. So, the mandate that happened with the masking, we want to make sure that never, ever happens again. And also with the mandate for the shot, that happened to many airline crew members. We want to make sure that that never, ever happens again as well. Our second mission is to help connect crew members that have been injured by the shot to doctors that can help them. And our third mission is to make some much needed legislative changes that absolutely need to happen, because the way this thing was handled really unveiled a lot of problems with the FAA, that three-letter governmental organization. I mean, they really just absolutely.
WHO, NIH.
Yeah, any of those three-letter organizations, they really need to be dismantled, and we need to start all over again. But you have to look at this realistically, and so I think that there's some changes that can happen with some governmental oversight. Like right now, things need to change in the FAA so that we can make our skies safer, because there are clear signals right now that there are more incapacitations of pilots and flight attendants now than there were before. We're having cardiac incidents. We're having medical diversions that are increasing. So, yeah.
Less experienced pilots are up in the air too. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are some less experienced pilots flying right now. And the main reason is because, when this whole, supposed deadly pandemic that wasn't a deadly pandemic, and anybody can verify that. If it was a deadly pandemic, there would have been a significant spike in deaths from 2019 to 2020, and there was not. So this was not a deadly pandemic, but everyone overreacted. The airline shut down. Nobody wanted to fly. And so they started laying off pilots and offering them early retirement packages. And so the guys that got the retirement were the senior pilots. So now when, the demand for the flying public came roaring back a lot faster than they thought it would, now you have less experienced pilots in the cockpit, and that decreases the level of safety as well. So yeah, there's a whole lot going on here that needs to be looked at.
And Dr. Buckler, what are your thoughts? Where do we go from here? What happens next?
Well, I think a lot of people are probably retconning how much they complied. And as far as me, like when I was in uniform, like I said, I complied up till February of 2020. Outside, I recall wearing a mask on 7 occasions, and I regret every one of them. And I honestly regret wearing a mask even while I was in uniform. But I mean, Solomon Ash's experiments just show people, once everything is over, people will always underestimate the extent to which they complied. It's just human nature. And hopefully we've got a lot more people who are just not going to comply under any circumstances, like Dr. Stillwagon, and I'm in that camp too at this point. So yeah, it's just, I just can't justify it. And hopefully there's enough people to keep this from coming back. But if we don't acknowledge what happened and repudiate it and put more legal safeguards in place, after our generation's out, the next one's going to repeat the mistake using this as a precedent and template, just like how the Spanish flu masking acted as a template and was kind of a cited precedent for even worse masking regulations in our own time.
Happened. Yes, I absolutely agree.
This conversation can't go away. If it does, we're just going to repeat it worse the next time.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thank you both for joining me. I'm Dr. Philip Buckler, his big book, The Book on Masks, and Dr. Kevin Stillwagon, and he is with freedomflyers.org. It's a nonprofit. Find out more about their initiatives. And I'm Jacquie Jordan. You can follow us or subscribe to us here on Rumble. You can also find us on YouTube or any place that you listen to your favorite podcast. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan podcast. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at TVGuestpert. We'd love to hear from you.